Well, that's the big news. We are bringing back the live drawings starting next Wednesday. Pretty excited. Everybody's been super cool and they've asked me about when it's coming back. Well, now I've got lots of excellent help. And as you can see, we've got an improved setup and it's going out on multiple platforms. So hopefully I can make this all work. Just using some watercolors. Hey, Jessica. Well, it's something I've wanted to make the time for, Mike, and people have been really nice, and um, I couldn't believe how many folks used to watch them. I mean, people were coming up to me at conventions um, on both sides of the country and from all over the globe, and I was completely blown away by that. So I wanted to find a way to do it better than we did it before, do it a little bit more professional, and this is just the start. We've got some big plans to do some really cool stuff. Um, and I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't think we could do it better than before, and bring something positive to it. And we'll do some of the similar things we did before. We're going to have giveaway drawings, but that's not going to be the only thing that we do. I'm actually going to be working on pages. I've gotten permission from some people that I work with to, so that you guys can actually see the full process of when I'm working on stuff. I'm doing something with Jeff McClellan, who I've worked on the tick, been fortunate enough to work on the tick with for a while now, and we're working on something right now, and I actually have to get him the final layouts for a couple pages, but that's coming down the pike, as they say. You can't see the whole piece because my camera is only so big, but I will move the piece around, and then at the very end, I will back it up so you can see the final product. And actually, the first piece that we'll be giving away is this one right here. I'm going really light with the colors. I pre-mixed everything. Hey, Danny. It's going okay. Got some new stuff cooking. We got shows coming up. We got the first show of the year this coming weekend. The South Coast Toy and Comic Show in Swansea. It's kind of an old-fashioned show. Like it was it's a show that they've brought back. Altered Reality has. If you ever went to shows, in the I would say in the 90s and in the 80s and stuff. That's kind of like what South Coast is. Obviously, they have new stuff. They have all kinds of new pops and all the crazy collectibles that the kids like these days. But just the size of it, and just that there's going to be some excellent artists there that you can actually spend time with and talk to. Like Craig Rousseau is going to be there, Joe St. Pierre, Dylan Andrews. There's going to be a good set of talent there hanging out and doing some artwork. It's at the Venus de Milo this weekend. Now, normally I would actually go a lot heavier on the tones. I like to use a lot of pigment when I use watercolors, but I'm going a little light right now. And if anyone has any suggestions for stuff they'd like to see, things they want to, things they have questions on, future stuff, I'm here for it. Love to hear it. Switch to my favorite brush. Now, I wouldn't necessarily refer to this as a painting. This is a colored drawing. It's got a heavy reliance on line. I'm really not doing a ton of blending. I'm really just giving some tones. I'll probably do some more stuff like this. I've actually been doing watercolors for my binders for sale at conventions, and they're more finished than this. They have if anyone's seen any of my finished watercolors, they have a lot more detail. I actually just finished lettering a book for my buddy Nate Lovett. It's the second issue of Carter Kane. Hopefully I can get Nate on the channel. I'm going to be doing a show out in Ohio called Gem City Comic Con, and see if I can finagle getting him to pop on. His new book is terrific. If you haven't seen his creator-owned book, Carter Kane, he's got the first issue at shows, and it's just wonderful. If you like the fun space adventure, fantasy stuff. Well, Danny, I used to use like the fancy sable brushes, but what ended up happening was I would just honestly, like, I wasn't putting enough time into my watercolors to make it worth the investment. So I started using actually the same brand that I use for my inking brushes, because if you buy a bunch of them, they'll give you a deal on them. This is actually an even cheaper brush. This is an older, just Utrecht brand synthetic. But you'll see I've got the orange Raphael brushes. I use those quite a bit. I think those are excellent, especially for the price point. I think they're affordable and they do a good job. Kyle, we love you too. I've got a crap load of lights pointed down on this this piece here, and it looks bright, very bright to me. But on the screen, it doesn't look super bright. So if I need to figure out some more lighting, just let me know. For the brand of watercolors, I'm just using a basic cotton inset. They are the Winsor Newton watercolors, and I tend to use really heavy pigment just because I like when I go into it really bright colors. I think the way I was trained with watercolors, like one of the big mistakes that I was trained to avoid was just by adding too much water, because the tones and the pigments can be really beautiful and very bright. If you go to the Museum of Fine Arts or whatever, you can see just like absolutely beautiful watercolors that are as bright as any, gouache. Smooth that a little bit. The other thing I was always trained to do is to never use any color straight out of the tube, whether it was oil painting or watercolor. Oh, thanks, Mike. Yeah, it's with the tick being it primarily blue, I use a lot of orange backgrounds. I'm just going to leave the paper through white highlights. If I was doing like a commission for someone, I would probably go in with a really, really light yellow wash underneath to actually give a rim to the highlights. And what it would do is it would actually create a more balanced color palette. But trying to keep this one short because it's to talk about the more in-depth stuff we'll be doing down the line. But like I said, I got a really excellent helper. My buddy Eli's helping me out with this stuff. And he is exceptional at this. Hey, Jeff. I just mentioned the stuff that I didn't give anything away. I just said we were working on something and that I was going to film working on the pages because you said it was cool. And very excited about that. But I hope some of you folks can make some time and pop in and say hello on a Wednesday. You can tell me about what new comics you got. I don't ever get to the comic shop on Wednesdays anymore, unfortunately. Wish I could. Well, we're doing a science fiction thing. If you're serious, I'll talk about it. One of the cool things about this software here is that it brings all the live chats from the different channels into this one spot. So I can actually talk to anybody and everybody that pops in to see the video, which is unbelievable to me. Something I had to learn about. One thing I also tell people is that, my version of the tick has kind of evolved as I've worked on it, thankfully. If you see the first story I did of the tick, like I had no conception as to the three-dimensionality of its chin. I had very little understanding of the mass and the movement and like the exaggeration that's needed to like make a decent tick. And every time I've been lucky enough to sit next to like some really great tick artists like Ben Edlund, obviously the creator of the tick, and Gabe Crate. I got to watch Xander Cannon, who, he's won tons of awards for Kaiju Max and Hack and all the other books that he's done. And I've gotten to watch them draw the tick in person at shows. And I absolutely try to learn from them every time I do. And one of the first things that I learned I mean, Stan's work's terrific. Danny, like, I got to when I did the variant cover, I actually went over to Stan's booth and we took a photo together, and he was very, very kind, and he signed the original cover that I did. And I actually went before I went to San Diego this year. I actually bought the first giant trade paperback of Usagi because honestly, like I had read sporadic issues and I hadn't read them in years because I used to work at a comic book store. And obviously, when you work in a comic book store, you get the free reign of the library. And um, when I met him, we didn't even really talk about Usagi. He asked me a couple questions about the Tick. I just told him how big of an honor it was to draw the cover with both characters and thanked him for letting NEC do it. And I hope in a number of years people think of it fondly. I'm doing well, Jeff. Then I'll talk about it because I'm pretty excited. It's a story that I would never guess that I would get assigned because it's like robots and architecture and like all these different geometric lines and stuff. Because generally, like people like to mention that that's not necessarily my strong suit. I'm just adding a little bit of a soft blue edge. And it's going to be for a Kickstarter that Jeff is doing, Planet Comics. And I got to see another one of the stories that's in it, and I got a little intimidated by it because it was really, really good and like exceptionally well drawn, well written, clever. But the one thing that I do really like about the story that I'm working on is it has like a tremendous amount of heart, and I think that that's a hallmark of some of Jeff's writing that I really like. See, this is where I didn't get enough pigment in. It's starting to fall apart. And if we do watercolors, you're going to find out all of my crutches, all of my trying to hide things. So you're going to be able to look at a piece of mine and be like, oh, that's where he was hiding stuff. Hey, thanks, Vincent. As the people at NEC would say when they hear that, he loves you too. But yeah, I asked the nice folks at NEC, and they said it was cool if I drew the Tick on this first one. I try to get permission every time that I do something like this. That's probably a little bit of a detail you won't be able to see through the camera. But I use Payne's Gray as my catch-all. Like that's my crutch. Like you can look at plenty of my old drawings and there's just Payne's Gray covering stuff up. if you were to see this paint going down, because I'm trying to smooth out the blue, it's actually got a little bit of a gelatinous feature to it. Just because I want to try to smooth it out some. This is actually just Bristol board, smooth Bristol, and it's actually the cheap kind. Because I'm not doing heavy washes, you can get away with using lighter paper. You can see that I'm actually saturating the paper if you see the little fibers coming through, which means that I've reached the limit of this paper. But right now I'm just trying to flatten the blue. But I've started announcing other shows. Well, it does take practice, like anything in art, and I was very fortunate to get some painting training when I was younger, went to school. A number of years ago, I tried to switch over to markers, and I was just terrible with them. Like everybody at these shows does like gorgeous marker drawings, and I just could never get it together. It's one of those where I just said, you guys can take the marker, mark it. I'm terrible at it. Although that's kind of the industry standard, and people kind of expect, Copic marker drawings at conventions now. There are some folks that do ink wash like I do, and it's a little different. It was a surprise, Jonathan, because this is just the promo. I already finished the drawing when I was taking my lunch break today, and I had to let her a little bit when I got home. If this were a cover, they would probably tell me not to use green, but I love green. Green is actually my favorite color. We're going to try to keep it Wednesday night, and I've been trying to think of ways to keep myself on the ball. And one of the things I was thinking about is maybe I'll reward myself if I get, if I do 52 live drawings. I'll buy myself a piece of art or something. Hey, thanks, Matt. When I was thinking about doing these, this tonight, I was thinking about what it was I liked about doing these live drawings, and I grew up playing sports, and it actually reminds me of game day. When you're waiting to go out there and you have good games, you have bad games, but there's some butterflies and you're excited and nervous. And it's a good feeling. Like I said, I'm just doing a nice light coloring, not doing anything too crazy. Seeing if you keep it a little messy, you can get away with some mistakes like that. I agree, Vincent. Yeah, I love painted stuff, but I'm biased. I am looking forward to this weekend, Jonathan. It'll be fun. Hang out with some artists. Maybe get some sushi. It'll be good. Hoping there's some good dollar bins there. Some good vendors that'll pop in, so hoping they'll come through for me. Oh, thanks very much, Danny. And actually, for the purpose of tonight, that's done. Big news. We're doing these again, and yeah, I hope to catch you around. And see if I can go back a little. See the whole thing. Thanks for popping in. I'll see you in a week.